It's the election month, but whoever wins, it doesn't really matter. There are still going to be some very juicy opportunities to earn yield when it comes to being on chain. Today, that's what we're going to talk about. Let's get straight to it. Welcome back to another video. My name is Waj, and this is Farms of the Month for the month of November 2024. Some of these strategies will still actually work even in December, in January next year, and even further than that. So if you're watching this at a later date, don't worry. There are some great opportunities. Anyway, we're going to go through a variety of different strategies. In fact, we're going to go through 15 different strategies. I've got 2 bonuses in this one. For those of you who wanted to watch this video, you will have known that I posted this on Twitter a few days ago, but we've got some bonuses here. So we're not going to waste any time. Let's dive straight into the first strategy, which is using D2 Finance. Now, D2 Finance have a variety of, you could say, hedge fund strategies, simple deposit and earn strategies, and the underlying assets like USDC that you deposit into these strategies are used in derivatives, especially with option strategies. Luca is the mastermind behind some of these strategies, and you can see the APRs on screen right now. The D2 USDC one is the latest strategy. It is filled at the moment, but there will be opportunities for you to deposit as well. There is also a DGen BTC leverage strategy as well, which is going to be starting pretty soon. So yeah, keep an eye out on these. The ETH++ is still available right now. And of course, there will be the Berachain one coming in due time. So that's D2 Finance. Next, we're going to talk about Ostium. Ostium is a perpetual exchange focusing on real-world assets. One of the interesting things right now is the funding rates, and you can arbitrage this if you want. You can see that right now you can get paid to short Bitcoin. And so if you hold a position where you have, let's say, some spot Bitcoin and you short an equal amount of that, well, the short side is going to pay you. So you've got a yield generating kind of pseudo stable coin, essentially, because if the price of Bitcoin goes up or down, your overall value with that position is going to be the same. But you're obviously going to be earning that juicy 20+% yield. So an interesting one that you can do at the moment. Funding rates are dynamic and change all the time, so it's something that you'll have to monitor. But again, yeah, it's something that over the last few days has been pretty profitable for those who have been able to use it. And right now, as of recording, it still works. Next up, we're talking about Timeswap, a consistent feature in Farms of the Month. You've got a variety of interesting strategies where you can lend wrapped ETH and earn 40% here. You've also got a couple of USDC and USDT kind of lending opportunities where you can earn really, really high APRs. We're talking about 80% here with the Pendle pool. The main thing that you have to really consider here is the transition price, where if the price of the other asset drops below the transition price, your deposit gets converted into that asset. So, you know, some of these assets you might want, some of them you probably don't want. And so, yeah, just keep an eye on that. That transition price is very, very key. But I think for the moment, I think things like Pendle are trading a decent amount above this. And so I think that risk is fairly low for the time being. But either way, you've got a good opportunity here to earn 77% APR, not too shabby whatsoever. Talking about Pendle, that's next up on the list. And we've got some of the Bitcoin opportunities around at the moment. Now, the yields, again, have dropped here recently, and so it might be more attractive for you to go for the principal tokens for some of these different LSTs for Bitcoin. There will be probably some new Bitcoin pools coming in due time as well, so keep an eye out. One thing that I know is that when the Bitcoin pools come out, the yields are generally pretty high to begin with, and so you can really earn some juicy Pendle rewards when that does happen. Otherwise, PT tokens work pretty well, and you can earn, you can basically buy Bitcoin at a nice discount there. So another one for you if you're interested. What you can potentially do in due time is take these principal tokens and loop them by borrowing stables and kind of getting leverage exposure to a principal token that in that way. That is also another opportunity there. We'll talk about Fractality next, which is a more newer application. They have a variety of quant strategies available. But the main one at the moment, they are doing funding rate arbitrage. And currently, the APR for your USDT that's deposited in him, which becomes FR USDT, is almost 30% APY. Pretty damn juicy, and a nice one to earn with your stablecoins right now. Next up, we're going to talk about Console. Console is actually a UIUX, which is built on top of Safe, the multi-sig wallet. Now, this isn't actually a strategy per se, but I think it's one of the great things to farm, because right now they do have this points program in which you can earn these rewards for doing a variety of activity. And so, yeah, you can participate in some of the different strategies that they have as well. I think it's really one of the great apps that we have today. Again, you can use any of the strategies in this video, or the vast majority of them, EVM ones anyway, directly through your Console account. And so I'll leave a link to it in the description below. You can use it if you want. Next up, we're going to talk about Syrup, a money market. Right now, they have some pretty good yields on USDT and USDC with an APY of 20%. Half of it comes from real yield in the form of USDT and USDC. The other comes from drip rewards. So combine them together and you get 20%. Now, drip will convert into the governance token, which is going to be called Syrup in due time. Not sure exactly when, but hopefully in the not so distant future. Next up, we'll talk about GMX. Now, GMX is a perpetual exchange, and the counterparty to the traders here are the LP providers. And so they have a variety of these different pools here on Arbitrum that you can buy, and essentially you're being the counterparty with these GM tokens. Now, one that is pretty interesting to me is the Bitcoin USD pool, and that's because you have just general exposure to BTC, both on the upside and the downside, really. And I think this is pretty interesting because right now the APY is 20%, but if you really wanted to, you can go to another market like Dolomite and you can leverage up on that. And so I think this is a pretty interesting strategy, exposure to Bitcoin and earning 20% yield, plus the opportunity to leverage up on that as well. Seems pretty nice to me. Your main risk here is that if traders, perform really well, then yeah, the GM token won't be worth as much. But if they don't, look, you've got single-sided exposure to Bitcoin, and you're taking counterparty risk. Not too bad at all. Next up, we're going to talk about Solv. Now, Solv is probably one of the best Bitcoin LST protocols around at the moment. They have a variety of different strategies that you can use with Solv BTC. One of the interesting new ones is the Jupiter one. Now, for those of you who don't know, Jupiter is a perpetual exchange on Solana, and they have a model where they have an asset called JLP. That is the counterparty. It's an index fund that consists of a variety of assets: Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and stablecoins. And what's interesting is with this strategy, they hedge out the exposure of all of the other assets, and so you have just a pseudo Bitcoin exposure, a Bitcoin long exposure, and you're still able to earn some juicy APRs, I should say, from the trading fees that come from Jupiter, the pups itself. So very interesting, and yeah, this is one where you've basically got an LST earning Solv points, but also some real yield, which is double digits as well. Next up, we're going to talk about mETH, the protocol. mETH is the fourth largest LST at the moment in the Ethereum ecosystem, and they actually have a liquid restaking token now called cmETH. Now, I'm mentioning this because very soon there will be some opportunities for you to use your cmETH to earn powder. Now, cmETH is really interesting because it earns 6 rewards in one. I will have a video on this out pretty soon, so you can go and watch that. If not, it might be out already. But it's really talking about the power of mETH and more importantly, cmETH with the restaking element too, and how some of those rewards you can get from cmETH, I should say. So yeah, pretty interesting one, and one that I will be enjoying, hopefully, in the not-so-distant future. Next up, we're going to talk about Reserve Protocol, particularly because of the permissionless RTokens that can be built on the Reserve Protocol. And some of these have been incentivized really nicely, meaning that you can farm some pretty good double-digit rewards here when it comes to your stablecoins. High yield USD and electronic US dollar here, you can see on base on Aerodrome, 16.4%, not too shabby whatsoever. At times, these go above 20% as well, so keep an eye on them. But yeah, otherwise, some pretty good yields. You can go to some auto compounders there if you want to increase that a little bit further. But yeah, in general, I think RTokens can have some pretty good opportunities. So go have a look on here. This is the Reserve app, where you can see a variety of the different RToken yield opportunities in the DeFi ecosystem per se. Next up, we're going to talk about Fraxel, which is the L2 built by the Frax team, and this is actually some of the opportunities on Curve. Now, one of the interesting things that Frax have built are these Frax Bond products. Now, for some reason right now, the yields aren't loading, so I'm going to just refresh my screen quickly, bear with me. These bond products offer some pretty interesting yields, as you can see on screen right now, where you can earn CRV tokens, FXS tokens, and Fraxel points, and of course a bit of base APY as well. So combine all of them together and you've got some bond products here where you're earning 25-30%, which seems pretty good, and you're earning some points as well. Now, there are some speculation cases here in regards to what the value of CRV and FXS is going to be in future, but I think for the time being, look, you can farm, you can sell, you can do what you want really, and yeah, some of these pools are a little bit small, so this isn't going to be super friendly for all of you whales, but in general, look, the Frax Bond products are printing pretty nicely at the moment, so not too bad whatsoever. Next up, we're going to talk about Fluid. And what we're going to talk about here are some of the interesting borrowing opportunities. And you might be thinking, wait, hold on a second, how am I going to be earning from borrowing? Well, you'll see here that there is this icon here called Smart Collateral. And what Fluid have done, and this is really, really interesting, is the fact that you can lend LP tokens and borrow LP tokens. And you might be thinking, why on earth would you want to do that? Well, you have to remember that LP tokens are earning fees from the trading that happens between that pair. And so you can actually leverage up a little bit on, let's say, a position like this and essentially create a leveraged LP position where, let's say, if the trading fees were 10% a year, if you leverage up 5x, 5 times that, 50% APY. Not too shabby whatsoever. Now, of course, this depends on the volume. Higher volume means greater reward, but the borrower rates are not too bad at the moment. And so this is something that I think if it does pick up and if there is significant volume, this is a pretty interesting strategy for sure. Now we're going to go into some of the bonus ones. First of all, we're going to go into Cega. Cega is a protocol built on Arbitrum, Ethereum, and Solana, and they have a variety of different strategies. One of the strategies that I like is the Gold Rush strategy, which you can deposit stable coins in, and you can get exposure to Ethereum and tokenized gold. And essentially, you don't get exposure to these assets. Essentially, you're selling options against these assets. The main thing to worry about with this strategy is that if you believe the price of ETH and tokenized gold will not decrease by greater than 30% in the next 1 month, then you'll be absolutely okay. That is the main thing that you have to kind of worry about. If you're a little bit worried about that and you think, actually, you know what, ETH could go down more than 30%, there are other strategies on Cega that are pretty interesting and worth noting. One of them is called Cruise Control. That is another famous or popular one that I should say. But yeah, otherwise, this is the Gold Rush strategy on Cega. And last but not least, we're going to go into the Solana ecosystem and talk about Kamino. Now, Kamino have a section called Multiplier, and essentially they let you borrow various different assets against yield-generating assets. So we've got the likes of JLP here, where you can borrow USDC, multiply yourself up by kind of looping, and you can see that the max APY here is 93% at the moment. That's because the yields on Jupiter are pretty high when it comes to JLP. Otherwise, the Solana yields are pretty good. I mean, 20% here, 18% here on your Sol. It's higher than most other LSTs. Of course, this is a looping strategy, and that's the reason why. Right now, there isn't much liquidity available, but just keep an eye on this. Liquidity can pop up anytime. So you might log into Kamino and find out, actually, you know what, there's some liquidity available, and you might find a pretty interesting leverage looping strategy available there for you. So I think with that covers 15 different opportunities, quite a lot that we've covered in this video. Let me know if there's any specific that you think I'm missing. Of course, there will be many others as well. We covered this last month. We'll cover it next month as well. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back with plenty more educational content in the not so distant future.